I'm Melanie Johnson along with my co-host Jen Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. This is Melanie Johnson. I hope you're having a super great day because I know I am. And I'm here with Jen Foster, my business partner. Hey, Jen.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
All right. We have a great show for you today. We're going to learn about technology and software that you need for your company. I don't know about you, but it's always a mystery to me what I need, what I don't need. It would be so cool if someone came in and analyzed my business and said, listen, you could increase revenues if you just did these types of things with your software. So we're going to find out about that today. But first, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you share it with your friends because you know you always get such great information. And we have a good time while we're doing it too. So I'm going to welcome Jacob Glenn today. He is the founder and managing director of Genio, and it is this off-the-chart software company. I just did a pre-interview before our interview, and let me tell you, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's been in the business for 20 years. He's taken businesses from start to finish and ones that are multi-million-dollar businesses and really help grow and develop their software programs. So Jacob, thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, Jacob, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the tech and software building industry.
Sure. Well, so I actually, came from pretty humble beginnings. I grew up on a farm, but back in the days of dial-up, I was always excited about things that had buttons that I could push, whether that were games or computers. And so I had an old Apple IIe computer that I used to get online with the AOL CDs they used to send out. For anybody who remembers those, I'm kind of dating myself there, but so that's where it started. In middle school and high school, it was either I was playing video games or I was trying to figure out how to do stuff online. I was getting in chat rooms and things like that. But from there, I went to Case Western Reserve for college, and I was in a computer engineering program, and I realized actually I really love technology, but I wasn't the best programmer, right? So I wasn't the guy who wrote the best code, but I could figure out the big picture and see how things fit together. And that really kind of positioned me as I went through school and then launched my career. I kind of grew up in the consulting world because I wanted to kind of put the pieces together and find where technology and business kind of intersected. That was really kind of what where I found that I thrived. And I worked really well with developers though, because I understood kind of what they were doing and kind of could get on the same page with them and kind of poke holes in their approaches and things like that. And so from college, I went on to work for a number of different both software companies and consulting firms doing kind of cutting edge technology. I was always working on something new and different. The high risk projects were always where I got stuck. And so then I started Genio 8 years ago, and we've been doing it ever since, having a lot of fun.
So software has always kind of been a mystery to me. I'm the least tech person on our team. Jen is way more tech savvy than I am, and I always think it's like, well, what do we really need? And then it's always like, to me, the software is like, okay, I have to invest in this, but it's like, I got to spend money on this, and I don't always see the ROI right away. So explain, how can you leverage the software that you can implement for companies?
Yeah. So that's, it's interesting. There are kind of three ways that I look at it. Three different specific types of software that a company can leverage. The first one, and this is probably the most familiar to business owners, is kind of the things that drive internal efficiency, the things that you have to have, like your QuickBooks or whatever your accounting platform is. But then also things like a CRM or for a service business, a ticketing system to keep track of service tickets and things like that. Those just help you run your business, right? And so the efficiency comes from either not losing track of things or from, reducing the hours it takes to accomplish something, or improving, how you deliver.
Mhm.
And so that's the baseline one. And that's just, every business has certain needs, and software makes them easier, right? The second one is where you start to get into software that can maybe increase your ROI, maybe can help you win more projects if you're a
Yeah.
project-based company, and actually improve the customer experience. And so that is what I consider, it's usually customer-facing software that is, a lot of times process driven and integrated to your business itself. So like if you have something that you do, and you have software that kind of sits alongside of it, both that you can use internally as also with your customers, that software can improve the engagement with your customers, right? So so you guys publish books. Like I don't know what that process looks like, but I can imagine you're getting stuff from your authors, right? And then there's stuff that they need to review. And so if you had a streamlined software that ran from start to finish in that process and really kept both sides fully into the loop with who's got the action items, what is it that they need to do, right? Maybe what are some metrics that are coming out, like once it's published, like if you're where you are on a bestseller list. I don't know what that looks like for your business, but if you can imagine that process end to end, the improvement in the experience can make a big difference, not only in how you deliver, but also in what your customer says about you later. And sometimes we see that software like that helps people win projects too, right? So when I built a house, one of the things that the builder had kind of mentioned to us in the process was, oh, we use this software that lets you see end to end what where your project is and when things are going to happen, so that you know what your dates are, where you have to have something here if you're supplying, say, like a light fixture, like that kind of stuff. So it becomes part of the sales pitch too. And then the third, which is the one that I find the most interesting, and we're starting to do more of this, is a software product that can be sold to your customers for additional revenue, right? And a lot of times that's recurring revenue. And so, especially in the environment we're in today, businesses are looking at, how do we, maintain some revenue when things are so crazy and people are not sure if they want to move forward with a big project? Well, if you have some sort of monthly subscription, that provides that kind of baseline. And so we're seeing more interest in this model, this SaaS model, software as a service, that's popular and becoming very kind of mainstream. But anybody who has a business where they have a kind of a core expertise that they can automate some percentage of that, is a place where this can be leveraged, right? As a revenue driver, maybe as a downsell, right? Someone's not ready to pay the premium, but hey, for say 40% of what you offer as a personalized service, they can get in a software, right? Or maybe as a, hey, we delivered, and now you need something that kind of keeps that customer sticky and close. Well, you can offer them some software that they pay a subscription downstream, right? So I have a good friend who has a recruiting business, and he goes into companies and he helps them set up their recruiting process, right? And he puts in place a subscription-based applicant tracking system. And it's not his, in this scenario, it's not his solution, but he gets a commission on it, right? So he gets a monthly commission from it. So it's a similar model. But he puts that in place, and then that they continue with that software, but that also keeps him top of mind, and they call him back when they need more help.
Awesome. So what would you say, like, how would you know if you need like full software, like a full software system, or just like an app? And what's the main difference between those? Because I always think about, oh, does our company need an app? Or should we sell an app, sell it to our customers or give it for free for so long and then it costs $1 or $5? Like, tell us about all that.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting question, because it is always very business specific, right? Like, what is your particular business and what do your customers need? But I think there's a question around, do I need to build something custom versus is there something off the shelf I can use, right? And a lot of times the answer is somewhere in between. Like usually it's something off the shelf that can be customized, that we can get kind of a jump start on and reduce the cost to get to where you want to be, but also have it customized enough for your business. I think when we look at those three different tiers, right? The internal software almost always can be off the shelf, right? There's enough people out there building software specifically for businesses to drive that internal efficiency. Sometimes it can be customized, right? When you think about things like a CRM solution, certainly customization of that makes sense to fit your needs, but an off the shelf is where you start. Not many people are out there building their own CRM solution today. When you get into that kind of customer facing software that supports your offering, that's another place where it's much less likely it's going to be off the shelf, but that interim kind of, there's some software that can be the baseline that you build on top of. One example is salesforce.com, right? Which is, people know it as a CRM solution, but it's actually a platform, and you can build on top of that platform a customer facing process based solution.
Well, when do you know if it's better to build your own software versus buying somebody else's and integrating that's already done? Like,
Yeah, and I think so. I think that's the big thing there is, so you build your own when it's unique and it's not out there, right? Like if someone hasn't put a product out there that does it, certainly you have to build your own. But you back off from there in terms of where the value proposition is, right? So you mentioned earlier struggling with where's the ROI, right? There's an investment and where's the ROI, and so a lot of that is you got to have a vision, and you need some. You need both like the technical kind of view of the world and where things are headed, and how what something that's already out there can do for you versus what if you build it yourself and have it completely customized to your process or your vision. What's the difference, right? And a lot of times that's where the business and the technology, you need to look at those two things together and where they intersect. I think that a lot of times, probably 80% of the time, if you look at the 80-20 rule, 80% of the time, if it's something that is unique to what you offer, right? Like you have a process or an expertise, building something custom makes sense because it's core to what you do, and you're not going to be able to get something off the shelf that's going to get you there.
well, then you own the technology too, right? Because they're paying someone for the technology, you own the tech. So maybe it increases the value of your company, would you say? Like, hey, we own the technology and the platform of this and the software rights. You could even sell the company and still keep the rights to the technology and have recurring revenue from that versus just renting somebody else's. Is that true?
Absolutely. Actually, we did a project for a company that ended up selling, and they originally were a service-based business, and over a course of about 5 years, they pivoted where 80% of their revenue came from that software, and their valuation was, I mean, from a multiple perspective, the multiple was double what it would have been if they were a service-based business. We're talking about, SaaS companies sell at a 10x multiple when service-based business sells at a 5x. Like the value add to the underlying company is certainly there. And the investors that I know and I work with, they tend to look at things and say, well, that recurring revenue is really interesting, right? If you can grow that month over month revenue versus, hey, I sold this big project, right? Like that's starting to become more interesting because it's more sustainable.
Yeah. Well, when do you know if it's the right time to build your own software or build your own app?
Yeah. So timing's tricky. And so I think with timing, a lot of the question is around where you are in your business maturity, right? So if you're just starting out, unless your intent is to be a software business, right? If you're just starting out, you haven't figured out where the hurdles are in your day to day, right? So you got to get to a point where your business is running smoothly enough where you can step back and say, here's what could be automated, or here's what our customers are asking for that we're not providing with our human interaction, right? And being able to look at your business from that level is really a driver for, hey, this is a good time to think about software. And then finding, finding the budget to invest in it, right? And then finding whether you're going to hire someone to be on your team full time to do that in house versus
Mhm.
go out to a company like mine and have us build something for you. That's another big decision point, and it's something that if someone isn't tech savvy or doesn't know
Mhm.
software, it's key that they get the right help to make that decision, right? Do I want to hire someone? And if I do, how do I get the right advisors or
Yeah.
friends to help me find the right person?
Walk us through, we had talked earlier before the show had started that you offer a service where you do like a roadmap for a company and you come in and you analyze what their software needs might be, what the ROI would be, like even like for our business or any business. Walk us through what you do on that roadmap. So people may say, oh gosh, I would love to have that for, to have Jack come in and do it on mine, or Jake would come in and do it on our company and do that kind of evaluation so I can decide what I need.
Sure. It's a fairly standard process for us, although it is always different depending on the customer, right?
Yeah.
So we have customers who come to us and say, um, I want to build this solution. This is the software I want to build, and we're getting into we start from that baseline and we get into, all right, what are the specific requirements that the functionality that you need,
Mhm.
and where do you want to take it from there? Like, what about this? What about that? We do a lot of like, hey, like technology could let you, go here or here. What
Right.
makes sense, right? You're the expert. What makes sense? And so if they're starting from that point where they already have that vision, um, we do a lot of whiteboarding, right? So we're drawing out what this looks like, what the process is, what the underlying technology looks like. And so the steps in that process for us are understand what the functional vision is, then define a technical vision that can support that, right, over time, right, in phases,
Yeah.
and then to define the actual phases of implementation.
Mhm.
And we lay all that out in a roadmap document. And then usually the other thing is a firm budget that comes out of that. Like, we know now exactly what it takes to build what you want. So here's what that is. For someone who doesn't have that kind of initial starting point,
Yeah.
then it's much more process based. We sit down with them and we lay out, okay, so what is your process, right? And
Mhm.
if it's, well, we do X, Y, and Z, and that is, our secret sauce, then it's a question of, okay, so what of that secret sauce do you want to either distill out and offer on its own, or we kind of go through all the different scenarios. We do a lot of like, well, we could build something that looks like this, or we could take that process and we could automate it like this, and kind of in that conversation and in those layout of process, we get to, oh, it's almost always like that aha moment where someone's like, that's it, like that's the vision I want. I didn't have it
Right.
coming in, but that's what I want. And then we go to that next step of what I talked about before, of someone who comes in with the vision. So but that's generally the process. It's usually a 2 to 3 week period
Mhm.
that we do that in, and that comes out of that is here's a vision, here's a roadmap, here's a technical architecture that will support that long-term vision, and here's what it would take to build it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there a specific timeline it takes? Like if you just want a simple app, do you have like a set time that it takes to build that, or is it different depending on every company,
Yeah,
every app
it's
or
always
every software?
different, but like we have a general, some general kind of guidelines. Like for a mobile app, that is, we'll say, moderate complexity. So like a middle of the road mobile app is roughly 3 months
Mhm.
to build it, right, start to finish.
Mhm.
And a uh, that's a simple SaaS platform, similar, about 3 months to build it. As you add integrations, so if you're tying into other systems,
Mhm.
that adds some complexity, and so that could add some time and some cost and things like that. But usually when we work with a customer who's putting an initial version of a software out, we recommend they start with what we call an MVP, or a minimum viable product. And so we try to start with that 3 month period for a minimum viable product, so they can get something, get some user feedback, play with it, see if it's, where things are good, where things are bad, what the additional features are that maybe they didn't think of that they want to add. A lot of times
Mhm.
your customers have ideas that you didn't. And so it's always good to get something out there, even with a beta group, and say,
Yeah.
all right, give us some feedback. Do you like it? Right. And they'll usually say, yeah, I love it. Can you add this? And that's, and we go from there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for coming today. We really appreciate it, Jacob. I learned a lot. I have a page of notes here that I've been writing down. So tell us where we can reach you today. So
Sure.
people can reach out to your company.
Yeah. So mgenio.com is our website, and you can go there and learn more about us. And there's a contact form there. And then I don't do much on social, but I am on LinkedIn. So I can be reached on LinkedIn. Just Jacob Glenn. It's pretty easy to find me.
Great. Well, we'll put those links in the show notes as well as on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. And we're excited to learn more about your company and maybe hire you in the future to build an app for us. So thank you so much for being on our show.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
We'll see you next time. Remember to subscribe to our podcast, hit that subscribe button below, and share it on your social media. We'll see you next time. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.